The rift between Kogi State Governor and his deputy deepens as the APC in the state suspends the deputy governor, Simon Achuba, over anti-party activities. And Omoyele Sowore will stay in the DSS custody for 45 more days, pending the conclusion of the security agency's investigation. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm sure Kimberley at Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos. Let's begin with a story on Omoyele Sowore, the convener of Revolution Now. He will have to remain in the custody of the DSS for 45 days with effect from today, the 8th of August 2019. This is the order by the Abuja Division of the Federal High Court, presided over by a vacation judge, Justice Taiwo. Although the DSS had asked for permission to keep Mr. Sowore for 90 days, Justice Taiwo says that the word may, as used in Section 27, subsection 1 of the Terrorism Prevention Act, gives the court the discretion to make a decision on an issue. We might touch on that story much later on our discussion. But let's check out some other political stories for you.
The president has met with the service chiefs and other heads of security agencies at the presidential villa in Abuja in continuation of the efforts to resolve the security challenges facing the country. Briefing State House correspondents after the meeting, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, said the meeting was to bring the president up to speed with the various security situation in the country. It says they also discussed yesterday's killing of police personnel by soldiers in Taraba State, although it did not give details on it.
The armed forces of Nigeria and security agencies, other security agencies, will continue to work to ensure the security of Nigerians and to also ensure that no individual or group of individuals undermines the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Nigeria.
The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has ordered the remand of the former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Maurice Iwu, in EFCC custody till tomorrow, August the 9th, when his application for bail will be heard. This followed his arraignment by the EFCC before Justice Chuka Obiozor, the 4-count charge of concealment, fraud, and money laundering of 1.2 billion naira. Professor Iwu has pleaded not guilty to the charges. In the charge, the EFCC claims that Professor Iwu allegedly aided the concealment of the sum of 1,203 million naira between December 2014 and March 2015. The money is believed to be part of the 23.29 billion naira slush fund allegedly shared by former Petroleum Minister Diazani Alison Madueke to influence the outcome of the 2015 presidential elections. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has handed over a property forfeited by the late Chief of Defense Staff, Air Chief Marshal Alex Bade, to the Northeast Development Commission to serve as its headquarters. The property, located on number 6 Ogun River Street, Maitama, Abuja, was handed over to the commission by the EFCC Director of Operations, Mr. Mohammed Umar. The property is the second building belonging to the former Air Chief that is being handed over to a government agency.
Let's get started. The rift between the Kogi State Governor, Mr. Yaya Bello, and his deputy appears to have taken a new twist altogether. It looks so much like a political decision has been made on the side of the party in the state. The party leadership in Kogi State has suspended Mr. Simon Achuba, the deputy governor, over anti-party activities. The state leadership of the party is accusing Mr. Achuba of anti-party activities before, during, and after the 2019 general election. The party also based the suspension on some actions the deputy governor allegedly took that constitute embarrassment to it. The APC state chairman, Mr. Abdullahi Bello, addressed a press conference in Lokoja today and says that the party has received several petitions from stakeholders in Iyano ward of Ibaji local government area where the deputy governor hails from. alleging that Mr. Chuba districtly and openly worked for the candidates of the opposition parties during the presidential, national, and state assembly elections in the state.
Progressive Congress does not condone acts of indiscipline, discretions, and anti-party activities from any party member, no matter how highly placed. To this end, the State Working Committee of our great party, having deliberated on the recommendation of the Disciplinary Committee of the APC Iyanu Ward and Ibaji local government chapter of the party, hereby resolve to uphold Elder Simon Achuba's suspension from the All Progressive Congress.
Well, the suspension of Mr. Simon Achuba comes a day after the House of Assembly in Kogi State moved for an impeachment on the deputy governor over gross misconduct. So it does look like things are mounting and the crisis and the rift and the gap between the governor is getting wider and deepening by the day. So where do we go from here in a state where the governorship election will happen in a matter of weeks? Again, the party, the Mr. Simon Achuba on the program yesterday did say he's seen all of this coming. Could this be the end of what is coming towards him, or there could be more? Let's get talking about this. Let's break it down for you. There's some legal angle to it and there's some political angle to it. So I've had my panel tonight. I have a political analyst and also a lawyer to break it all down for us to get a sense of what is really happening in the politics of APC in Kogi State. Joining me from our Abuja studio is Mr. Jide Ojo. He's a political analyst and policy and governance expert. And also Mr. Frank Tete is a lawyer and a rights activist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. Let me get your quick and brief reactions to the detention of Omoyele Sowore. The court, first let me get from you, Mr. Tete, the legal angle from here. What the implication of this means, what the implication of Sowore's detention, the protest, democracy in Nigeria, and the decision of the court today to keep him for 45 more days in the custody pending investigation. What does this mean?
Well, it's a very sad development. Unfortunately, that is the situation of the law. That is what is contained in Section 27 of the Terrorism Prevention Act. Unfortunately, still, it has been endorsed by a court. But for us, we have always considered that provision to be obnoxious, to be anti-democratic, to be anti-human rights. It's wrong, it's unfair, it's unconstitutional. But most unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, we are yet to challenge it. We were yet to challenge it in court to declare it that it's so unconstitutional, and now it's taking a toll on Mr. Sowore at this moment. Very sadly, it's a very sad development, and it could even be worse than that, but it appears the judge was a bit liberal, but even though he was very much under pressure, so much under pressure, because it was an ex parte application. There was no contrary position to that. You cannot, for any reason, detain a citizen on mere suspicion without trial for 45 whole days, looking for pieces of evidence here and there in order to justify why you have arrested and detained him or thinking of prosecuting him. It's wrong, absolutely wrong. But that's the state of the law, and the judge has spoken. But we have seen that the lack of challenging it before now is now going to become a monster.
All right. You're giving us the legal angle. Let Mr. Ojo give us, because the case of Omoyele Sowore has taken a political dimension. Politically speaking, Mr. Ojo, what does this mean? The APC yesterday said you cannot run for election and lose the election, and months later you're asking for revolution. That is immoral. Now the court is saying he will have to sleep in their custody for 45 more days. This distress on Sowore, and perhaps the implication for our democracy from the political angle, Mr. Ojo.
For me, you can't, I mean, you are spot on that you cannot look at this merely from the legal angle. I've said on other platforms that the application to keep him for 90 days is to keep him out of circulation. It's a deliberate ploy by the states to ensure that it does not constitute nuisance to the society by spearheading and going ahead with mobilizing citizens for the revolution that he is calling from. I empathize and sympathize with Omoyele Sowore. Like I said on other platform, he happens to be my student union president in my days at University of Lagos. And he's a known activist, he's a fearless, courageous, bold activist. But activism and politics sometimes are like oil and water. They do not meet. You participated in an election, you lost gallantly or whatever way, and instead of you preparing for 2023, 3-4 months after that election, you are calling for regime change, violent regime change. No government in its sense, in its right senses, will agree to a citizen inciting. I mean, you need to listen to the clip of his clip of July 25th. He wasn't calling for protest. He wasn't saying, okay, I'm going to converge at Unity Fountain and address the World Press Conference or anything of sort. He said he wants a regime change. It's an uprising he's calling for. And no government in its right senses will condone that. So we need to make distinction that, yes, there is a right to freedom of association, freedom of movement, but there is no right for you to incite citizens against government. More so as somebody who have lost in an election months earlier. So there is no way it will not be seen as a political move. So it's a tragedy of good intentions. I know Sowore meant well for the society. He meant well for Nigeria. We all know, I mean, we all choose different paths to calling for improvement in the living standard of citizens. Frank Tete and I, you know, we are involved in media advocacy. We know, you know, he is also involved in public interest litigation. So many dimensions to seeking redress to a bad situation. But where you are calling for regime change, on the heels of what has happened in many other African countries, we saw what just happened in Sudan, where 5 months of protest led to the pulling down of the 30-year administration of Omar al-Bashir. We've seen what happened in Egypt, in Zimbabwe, in Libya, and several other countries. In Yemen, and Venezuela is having its own tone now. So no government will want citizens to be incited to take up arms against the government that is constituted, like he said in other parlance, constituted authority. So I concede the right of Sowore to protest. I concede his right to even demonstrate. I concede his right to address press conference. But his right to incite citizens for regime change is not something that any liberal, no matter how benevolent a government is, cannot tolerate that. Otherwise, you are calling for the demise of your administration. And a lot of people sweated. 242 billion was spent on the last general election.
All right. So we'll go on break now. But Mr. Tietie, quickly, in 20 seconds, if you can tell us before we go on this break, is it cast in stone that Omoyele Sowore will be there for 45 more days, or his lawyers can challenge the ex parte motion or order that has been given by court today?
Well, well, they can challenge it, but I doubt if it will be vacated, because it's an order of court, and even if the court eventually vacates it, then the detaining authorities can now proceed to file charges. Unfortunately, what the detaining authority is claiming at this time is that it wants to conduct further investigations, and it has an act of the National Assembly supporting the application it has made before the court, and the court has so granted. So it will avail Sowore nothing if it is challenged and even vacated.
Because this case is linked to an issue of terrorism again, because that's the relevant law that has been quoted in this. Does it make it worse?
Beyond that, it does, because terrorism is a very serious offense for anybody to be accused of. And it's unfortunate that there may be no substantial grounds to accuse Sowore of terrorism at this moment.
All right.
Because there were certainly
apologies.
preventive
We need to take this.
measures the government could have taken.
All
I mean, not by exacerbating it or making the man unnecessarily popular or making the issues which he has a very serious concern to Nigerians.
Let me pause it for a moment. Apologies. Let me pause it for a moment because we need to take this break. But don't forget that we're still going to talk about Kogi State matter tonight. But when we come back from break, we'll look at all the perspectives in the Kogi State matter. Don't go anywhere. The political crisis in Kogi State is of a national interest, and we'll be talking about it when we return from this break, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So if you have been following the trends on what is happening in Kogi State, first, a deputy governor says the governor, his principal, is after his own life. Another thing that happens is that the House of Assembly is is planning an impeachment on him. Today, the party has suspended him. But let's even check another story, perhaps, that's just coming about the governorship election in Kogi State. We have today that 4 aggrieved members of the All Progressives Congress, APC, in Kogi State have asked the Abuja division of the Federal High Court to restrain the party from adopting the indirect voting mode in selecting its candidate for the forthcoming governorship election. The plaintiffs, who are members of the State Executive Committee, as well as delegates in the primary election slated for August 29, predicated their actions on the grounds that the indirect system of voting, if allowed, will not provide a fair and level playing ground for all participants. The plaintiffs in the ex parte motion with include Destiny Aroma, Issa Abubakar, Noah Aku, and Joe Onu, first to fourth plaintiffs, respectively, why the All Progressive Congress is defendant in the case. The counsel to the applicants, Oluwole Aladeoye, who moved and argued the ex parte application, told Justice Taiwo that the planned indirect election was a move to shut out his clients from participating in the poll. Justice Taiwo, however, adjourned the matter until Friday, August 9th for hearing. That is the latest coming from Kogi governorship primary. Let's go to our substantive conversation on it. So we open our conversation. I'll go back to my panel in our Abuja studio, Mr. Judy Ojo, a political analyst, and Mr. Frank Tete, a lawyer and rights activist. Let me begin this time around with you, Mr. Judy Ojo. You are the political analyst here. What is happening in Kogi State? We've seen this happen before when a principal is, in fact, we saw it happen at the federal level when the then former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, had a rift with his vice at the time, Atiku Abubakar. Things weren't going well politically with them. This time around, what do you think could happen, or what do you think may have happened beyond what the two sides are saying or alleging? Because the deputy governor told us right here on this program that he has a very big can of worms that is going to be opening in the coming days.
Well, this is politics, and in politics, there is no permanent friendship, neither is there permanent enmity, or only interest is permanent. As you have rightly said, we saw this between 2006 and 2007 at the federal level between former President Olusegun Obasanjo and his ex-wife deputy, Vice President Atiku Abubakar. We have seen this happening in Ogun State, between Musu and his the deputy governor in the first term. We've seen this happen in Bauchi. We've seen this happen in Enugu. We've seen this happen in several other, even in Abia, between Orji Uzor Kalu and Senator, then former deputy governor, what's his name now? Now Senator from Abia State. So this has been the norm. Vice President or deputy governorship position, as His Excellency Chukwuemeka Eze-Ife said, they are like spare tires. So you only need spare tires when the main tire is faulty. So quite unfortunately, I think I've also heard the deputy governor saying his principal, Yahya Bello, has not paid the salary and allowances in the last 2 years, and that he's being owed 218 million naira. And that is very distasteful. How will you expect your deputy, the next person to you, who has immunity and who is also supposed to be an acting governor in your absence, to function without being paid if he's being treated like a common civil servant. And it's so unfortunate, but one would have said maybe he should have resigned when all of this was happening. But he possibly have a reason why he has not chosen the resignation option. Because I for one, if I'm not wanted in a home, I will take my exit, honorable exit for that matter. I don't have to be pushed out. Because what is happening now is that the man is about to be pushed out. Now they are leveling allegation of anti-party activity against him. They are saying he is portraying the party in bad light. They are saying he's, committing, he's embarrassing the state. But there must be a cause before an effect. And like Abakamo said, a rebellion cannot exist without a feeling that somewhere in some way you are justified. The man is rebelling against the oppressive system under which he is a member. If he chooses...
Let me get Mr.
If he chooses to...
perspective on this Kogi matter. On one hand, they are planning a legal edging out for him, and on another hand, they are planning a political removal of the governor. So politically speaking, they want to remove him from the party. They've asked him that he's suspended to step aside. That's what they are saying from the party. What's your take on this?
Clearly, what is happening in Kogi State is a shared disappointment, especially on the part of the party and the House of Assembly. Now, the House of Assembly is not investigating the person that it ought to. The proper person to investigate in this scenario is a situation where the deputy governor says that, look, I haven't been paid. The situation in government is not proper. Now, a House of Assembly at that time should become a trigger. It should become a warning, a red flag to the House of Assembly that, look, there's something wrong in government. And then it should investigate the principal, that is the governor, and then not allowing itself not to know the boundaries, the limits of politics. When you allow politics to go too far, beyond the principles of good governance, beyond the principles of responsibility and fair hearing, the man has complained because of mere television interviews, mere statements and allegations, and then you move against him just because you consider that thing to be embarrassing. No, that's unfair. You should have investigated the issue. That is, how can a deputy governor be without salary? How can a deputy governor be hounded by his principal? That should have been the proper thing to be investigated, and therefore the party to take sides. And now, this is the reason why we don't have good governance in our country. We allow politics to go too far. You forget that the deputy governor is a constitutional personality. You just can't remove him, no matter how many signatures you have gathered as a state house of assembly. The chief judge also has a panel to constitute, and it must convince itself, a very independent panel of persons with questionable integrity, who will determine that, look, you don't have to allow politics to go against reason. The man complained against a principal. You are representing the people as a House of Assembly. Why take sides? Why become so hasty and then allow politics to blind you
we must leave it at that point tonight, because the rift between the governor and the deputy is something perhaps the national organ of the party may have to look into, because at some point they become a federal, a national representative of their party from their state. So it's going to get interesting in the coming days. I must sincerely thank you, my partner tonight, Mr. Frank Tete, a lawyer and a rights activist, and Mr. Jide Ojo, a political analyst, a policy and governance expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. Well, that's our show for tonight, and the eyes have it. Don't forget, if you are in government or you are in leadership, anything you do, make sure that is on the side of the people, the popular side. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye for now.